Greetings helmet heads, I'm Eurogamer's Ian Higton and welcome to my VR Corner. A couple of weeks ago I put out a video that listed off my top 13 confirmed PSVR2 games that I just couldn't wait to play, and at the end of it I wondered what people's dream PSVR2 games would be. Some of you answered that question in the comments below, so I took your suggestions, mixed them up with some of my own, and created the following list of my top 11 most wanted PSVR2 launch games that's in no particular order. Now, please bear in mind that this is nothing more than my dream launch lineup for the PSVR2. This is a wish list only, and some of the games featured on this list may either not exist yet, or maybe never will at all. Also for this list I have excluded PSVR1 ports and instead gone for ports of big PC VR games that have previously been unplayable on the original headset. But anyway, with all that said and done, let the daydreaming commence.
What do I want? Your operation.
He's not going to start an all-out war, he's not big enough.
I'm gonna go and find out.
You're just gonna walk in there?
The original Blood and Truth was absolutely cracking and easily one of my favourite games on the PSVR. It's a fast-paced James Bond simulator that allowed you to roleplay as a soldier in a war zone, a cockney gangster literally riding shotgun in a sports car, and even some kind of parkour hitman, dodging machine gun fire from a helicopter as you legged it across the floors of a barely built block of flats before they exploded behind you. In Blood and Truth, you're the star of your very own action movie, and in it, you can catch and throw back live grenades, dual-wield pistols, and generally live out all of those action movie fantasies that you never thought would come true. There's an excellent supporting cast who are brought to life by some top-notch voice acting and motion capture, and this serves to give you a real connection to the characters in some of the slower-paced scenes, while each action set piece is just varied enough to make you constantly gasp out loud with the thrill of it all. The gunplay is excellent too, but the news that the gameplay was on rails really turned a lot of people off, and it even stopped some of them from trying out this bloody great game altogether. A sequel for PSVR2 is rumoured to be in the works, but honestly, if it isn't, I'd be very surprised. Fingers crossed we not only get a longer game this time around, but also one that allows the player more freedom of movement. Sure, the on-rails nature kept the pace rattling along, but for a true big-budget AAA feel and maximum immersion, we need that sequel to have full locomotion.
Here we go.
We're almost there.
Half-Life Alyx was by far and away the most requested Dream PSVR2 title in the comments to my last PSVR2 video, and for good reason. It's also one of the best PC VR games ever made. The immersion factor in Half-Life Alyx is so high that it'll feel like you're actually living through the experience with Alyx, and oh my, what an experience it is. There's clever puzzles, thrilling combat, laugh-out-loud comedy, and oh my is there horror by the bucket load. If the poison head crabs don't make you scream louder than a goat on a roller coaster, the first time you meet Jeff will have you pooping your virtual pants in no time. There are so many memorable moments in Half-Life Alyx that I'd be here all day if I tried to list them all, but have no doubts about it. There's a reason why this game continues to be one of the best sellers on PC VR to this day, and simply put, that reason is because it's chuffing amazing. All we have are rumours and hopes to go on at this point, but if Half-Life Alyx did come to PSVR 2, this would without a doubt be the system-selling app that the headset needs. Come on Valve, you know it makes sense. Not only would it be a perfect way for PlayStation players to be able to experience your amazing game for the first time, but even if you don't want to do it out of the goodness of your own heart, you can at least be certain that you'd make a shed load of cash selling the game all over again to a brand new audience. Honestly, it's a no-brainer. The fact that Gran Turismo 7 launched without PSVR1 support came as a massive disappointment to all you digital petrol heads out there, but if anything can bring the current installment of Polyphony's stunning racing sim to the virtual world, it's PSVR2. Commenter Viral Oza came up with a lovely pitch for it, saying, "Just imagine you are racing multiplayer on Trial Mountain, a car comes next to you and you turn your head and look at the driver driving the car next to you. That driver is gazing right back at you, and through the helmet, your eyes meet, due to the eye tracking. Then you turn your heads back and race to the finish line." So that's maybe a slightly romantic imagining of what PSVR2 may be able to bring to the table for the game, but it's also technically possible, I presume. What you'll definitely be able to do though is check out all those perfectly modelled, almost photorealistic vehicles in 4K HDR, as if you were actually standing next to them, or even better, sat inside them in real life. Combine that with some headset haptics that allow you to feel even the slightest rumble from the road, or in my case, every bone-splintering smash you're in, and you'll be in for a wild time. But combine all of that with a full-on racing setup with a seat and a racing wheel, and you'll be set for probably one of the most realistic feeling and immersive experiences of your life.
I've located the relic. Heading back.
I'm definitely
Seeing some movement on the radar.
I don't see anything.
You need to get out of there.
There now.
Once upon a time, we here at Eurogamer used to love playing a bit of Phasmophobia together. I would always jump into it in VR though, as it made the game way more scarier and funnier than playing it in flat. Unfortunately, subsequent updates made the game harder, more unfair, and sadly, much less fun. But thankfully, we had Forewarned to fall back on. Forewarned is basically Phasmophobia set inside an Egyptian tomb rather than some random American 3-bed house. But crucially, it's scarier, there's more to do, it's way less aggravating, and with each update it gets better, not worse. In terms of a PSVR2 release, this one is utter wishful thinking, but in all honesty, some kind of multiplayer ghost hunting VR game would be amazing on PSVR2. There's loads on PC VR, so why not Dreambite games? Hey, you scared or something? With the new Sense controllers, players would be able to get to grips with all of Forewarned's Magi hunting tools as they head off into the darkness of a tomb together. And just imagine how utterly terrifying it would be to feel your headset haptics go off as an ancient Egyptian god whispers in your ear. Wait, did I say terrifying? I meant amazing. Come on, this would be such a cool addition to the PSVR2 library, and it would be incredible to watch console players finally be able to experience a PC-born VR ghost hunting game. Battle Royale games in VR sound like a great idea in theory, but of the many who have tried, only one of them has ever really taken off. Population 1, which admittedly has the world's stupidest name as you can only play in trios, is a fantastic Battle Royale game that mixes open-world combat with arcadey shooting action and some of the coolest, freest movement schemes in any VR game ever. You see that building over there? You can climb that. In fact, you can climb everything, and that opens up a world of possibilities when it comes to outthinking and outflanking your opponents. Can't be bothered to climb back down again? Spread your arms out wide and jump off the top of that building to glide down to safety like a big, featherless and fully armed eagle of death, and then loot up before heading, guns blazing, back into the next shootout. Again, there's absolutely no news of Pop 1 ever coming to PSVR2 at the moment, just a lot of hopes and dreams from me. But with a really varied map, loads of weapons to manually reload, and a basic building mechanic, the Sense controllers would come into play really well here. But also, what about utilising the PSVR2's eye tracking to select your weapons, medkits or shields from your weapon wheel? That'd be awesome! The only downside for me when it comes to Population 1 is that, utterly bizarrely, you can't play solos on PC, and the randoms it matches me with are always really unreliable. Hey, Big Box VR, whack this on PSVR 2, give us solo lobbies, and watch this game become one of the most played PSVR 2 titles going. Come on, you know it makes sense. Or at least More sense than calling a game with only a trios mode Population 1 anyway. Over the many years I've been covering VR, I've heard the phrase, imagine what Nintendo could do with VR a lot. But here's the thing, with Astrobot Rescue Mission, you don't need to wait for Nintendo to get into VR, because Astrobot Rescue Mission is the most Nintendo-like thing on the entire PSVR platform. This incredible platformer really is the pinnacle of PSVR games, and it's not just because it looks and sounds incredible. It's also down to the fact that it constantly reinvents what a 3D platformer can be, delighting the player time and time again with moments of pure magic that just cannot be replicated in traditional flat games. Each unique level just oozes imagination, and playing through the story mode made me remember the days when Mario 64 blew my mind with its game-changing take on the series. Here though, it's not just the main character that gets to experience the adventure. You're just as much a part of the game as Astrobot, and there's plenty of opportunities for you to interact with the stunning levels that Japan Studio has produced. Whether you're a beginner or a VR veteran, you cannot play Astrobot Rescue Mission and not smile from ear to ear as you do so, and because of this, the world needs an Astrobot Rescue Mission 2. Sadly, Japan Studio is keeping tight-lipped about whether or not there's a desperately wanted sequel in the works, but in all seriousness, PSVR 2 needs its own dose of Astrobot. Thanks to the headset haptics, the eye tracking, and the new Sense controllers, there's so much potential for new and imaginative ways for players to get immersed in VR that I couldn't think of anyone I'd like to experience that more with than my cute little botty here. Wait, that sounded weird.
Prioritize Mobius 1. I'm going up first. Good.
One of the greatest PSVR games available, in my opinion, wasn't a game at all. Instead, it was the 3 short VR missions included with the game Ace Combat 7, and they were so intensely immersive that they almost made me cry. If you've ever wanted to feel like Tom Cruise in Top Gun, Ace Combat's VR missions are the way to go. From the fully detailed plane interiors through to the way that water droplets form on the glass of your cockpit as you thunder through thick clouds, everything here is drenched in realism, and by crikey does it look gorgeous, even on the low-resolution PSVR 1 headset. A full VR Ace Combat game for the PSVR 2 is probably the least likely game on this list to become a real thing, but if it did, oh my word would it be amazing. Just think about how incredible the sky would look through that 4K headset, and how detailed the ground below you could be. And what about on takeoff as you gun the throttle and rocket down the runway? With your headset and Sense controllers vibrating in unison, it would feel like you were actually there. And the thought of that is just so exciting to me. Dogfighting in Ace Combat 7 was so thrilling and downright whoop-worthy that I must have played through that small selection of VR missions dozens of times before they even began to get boring. Damn it, even just talking about this is making me sad that something this awesome may never happen again. But that's what this list is all about, dreams, and this is indeed a Dream VR game. While this section is titled Boneworks / Bonelabs, I'd honestly be happy with one or the other on PSVR 2, but I would gladly take both. Boneworks was one of the first VR games I played that managed to convince me that the virtual object I was holding in my hands was real. Both games have a steep learning curve when it comes to the control schemes due to this, and neither of these would have been possible to play using the Move controllers on PSVR 1. But with the Sense controllers, replicating the PC experience would be easy. Seriously, if the developers Stress Level Zero can squeeze these games onto the Quest 2, then there's absolutely no excuse for them not to appear on the PSVR 2. So while there's no definite news either way about a port, Stress Level Zero did say back in 2001 that there was a 90% chance that they'd bring Boneworks to PSVR 2. So I'd be tempted to put money on the fact that either one or both of these games will make its way to PSVR in the future. As both a spooky horror game and a great introduction to the wonders of VR, Until Dawn's rollercoaster-based spin-off Rush of Blood is in dire need of a sequel. The first game was a perfect launch title for the original PSVR, gentle enough to ease new players into the VR world, but also it came with enough shocks and surprises to entertain even the hardiest of VR veterans. It was simple, scary, arcadey fun, and because of this, it was always the first game that I'd put newcomers on when I was introducing them to PSVR. Well, that and the fact that it was absolutely hilarious to watch them poop themselves at all the creepy clowns that attacked them.
Sit back, relax, deep breath.
Gorilla Tag is the only game on this list that, shamefully, I haven't played yet, because not only is it free, from what I can gather, it's also one of the funniest and most physical VR games going. You can pretty much gather what the game is about from the title though. You're a gorilla, or at least half of one anyway, and you need to use the power of your arms to run, jump, fall, and climb your way to victory as you try to avoid the rapidly multiplying team of infected apes. This game has some of the most positive VR reviews I've ever seen on the Steam store, and it's such a simple premise that it would do amazingly on PSVR2. Sadly, there's not a great chance of that happening, but you never know. Perhaps if we ask nicely enough, the developers will be kind enough to stop monkeying around and start work on a PSVR2 port. You know, just for us. And finally, what next generation VR headset would be complete without a game that let you realistically dismember and decapitate an infinite supply of realistic looking human beings? The first time I played Blade and Sorcery, the action in it was so believable that I actually started to feel really dark about myself. Am I the baddie? I was thinking. But then I remembered it was just a game, and suddenly lopping people's legs off with a two-handed broadsword before stabbing them through the eye socket with a dagger became the funniest, coolest thing I'd ever done in VR. But gratuitous maiming isn't the only thing on offer here. There's climbing, there's magic spells to cast, sandbox arenas to play in, and a very cool procedural dungeon crawling mode in there too. Plus the game keeps getting updated regularly with new things to do, so fingers crossed if this ever comes to the PSVR 2, we'd get the full PC version and not the squished down Quest port. So what are the chances that either of these versions will ever make it to PSVR 2? Well, according to a developer FAQ from 2021, it's a big fat maybe at the moment, but that doesn't mean we still can't dream, eh, Cornerinos? And those, my VR-loving friends, were my top 11 most wanted PSVR 2 launch games. But what do you reckon? Which games would you love to see coming to PSVR 2? And which ones on my list do you think are pointless pipe dreams? Let me know in the comments below, and then, if you're feeling extra chatty, why not tell me what your most wanted PSVR 1 port would be, and maybe it'll make it into a future video. As always, do give this video a like if you enjoyed it, subscribe to Eurogamer for almost daily videos about video games, and VR Corner episodes every Sunday, and then maybe, just maybe, click on one of these other PSVR 2 videos that are on screen right now. There's a couple of them on there, but also that big playlist there has like hundreds of VR videos in it, so you can watch me dick around in VR for hours if you want, and you totally should because it keeps me in a job in it, and if I don't have a job I can't pay for my VR headsets or the games or the internet so that I can play them online.